Hi everyone, welcome back to Film Ranks. Today I'm going to talk about two of my favorite Bethesda games, and I'm going to try to keep it as brief as possible because these games have a lot to talk about. So I'm going to try to get through this as brief as I can. That's going to be the biggest challenge because, again, these games are very detailed and packed with a lot of information. So I'm going to try to make the most out of what I can say was these two games that I'm about to share with you. The first of which is Skyrim, and the second one is Fallout 4. So, uh, you know, it's not a game that, everyone's going to agree is like the best Bethesda games or the games from the Elder Scrolls series or the Fallout series, and that's okay. But I think these games for me have been staples of I don't know, like getting into adulthood and like having fun was games that are, again, like fantasy worlds, and doing all of this nerdy stuff was like creating overpowered characters that are like warriors and um, like warriors and mercenary types and that kind of stuff. So if you're into uh, action games, RPGs, which is all that really means is role playing, you know, this is probably a video for you because you might actually have played these games and have a lot of fun with it. So, yeah, to start with Skyrim, there's gonna be spoilers, and there's gonna be spoilers for Fallout 4 as well. So, if you haven't played these games, you know, you've been warned that I'm gonna spoil it. So, it's up to you if you want to continue watching. But either way, I'm gonna talk about these games in its full context. I won't be able to talk about every single thing because these games are almost never like able to be completed. You can still find ways to make the games last longer, probably through mods, honestly, especially Skyrim. Fallout 4, maybe, but I don't check mods very often for Fallout 4, I'm gonna be honest with you, because I've been playing it mostly on my console, and that's for my sake. I don't want to make a game more fun or addictive than it has any right to be, so that's just my opinion. So, to really get into Skyrim, it's a very simple game. Just think of Lord of the Rings, and just think of that film franchise, and if it were to be in a different world, was a lot of the same people and creatures. And it's not like the same people as the characters, but same people as, like, there's humans, there's elves, there's orcs, like that sort of stuff, and there's also dragons. So what makes this story so unique is you have the ability to absorb the power of a dragon. You know, you can shoot flames through your mouth. You can push people and objects 20 feet away if you really wanted to, or off a cliff. It's insane. Like, there's a lot of detail to this game, and I think it still holds up even now, as in the time I'm making this video. Like, it still holds up pretty well. There's insane amount of mods. So if I had to rate this game, even before telling you everything that there is to it, I would give it a solid 8.5 without mods. Without mods. With mods, it's a solid 9. Honestly, because you can do so much. You can make the world look nicer. You can have more interesting weather. You can add more effects to the animations. Like, the list is almost endless. Like, you can make this game feel like an entirely different game if you wanted to. You can make this game feel like a horror game. You can make it feel like a game set in a different geographical location. Like, that's how insane the modding is. It's really crazy, but it's very fun. You know, you may have heard of a guy named MXR, um, MXR Plays, and you may have seen one of his videos if you're a Skyrim fan, you know. And if you do, well, there's a shout out to him because he is one of the reasons why I got into like modding Skyrim for a while. But again, like I think the problem the problem was why I don't give this game a 10, because I did at some point like this game a lot more than Fallout 4. The reason why I don't give it a 10 is because if you start modding stuff, you may not know how that even works, and it can be very confusing without researching, which already makes it more work. And aside from adding more work to a game that's pretty simple, depending how you look at it, uh, it just makes the gameplay more complicated, because if you add a bunch of mods, you can mess up a lot of things in the game. Your character can be stuck in a T-pose forever. You know, you might have to delete some saves or restart your game if it crashes, and download other application software to manage your load order. Like, it's a whole slew of things. So to get it to work all correctly, and hopefully you don't download more than 20 mods, because it also will make the game run less efficiently. Like, yeah, like I don't recommend modding, like I don't recommend adding a bunch too many mods. Like it also it could also, as much as it is to be fun and experimental, it could also ruin the game, because you may crash a lot more than you would want, and then there's going to be weird wonky animations, and it can go wrong, and it can ruin the experience as much as it can make it better. So it's like almost equal and opposite reactions. Like too much can equal bad for sure instantly. It's almost more fun to have less mods in this game, which is kind of crazy, because once you enjoy having less mods, your natural inclination is to want more. So it's a very tough thing to deal with. So yeah, it's not the most ideal long-term wise, because again, you're gonna be getting that, like, again, that inclination to always want more, which can ruin the gaming experience. And also, I mean, it's still a fun game even if you play it like what they call like vanilla style, like, you know, without any cheats or mods. Like, it can still be interesting. It's just gonna feel a little bit more monotonous, and you know, the world isn't gonna look as more interesting as it would with like mods. But that's the only thing. And to like give a brief description of the storyline, again, it's like you are like in this medieval era. You're in the land of Skyrim. This is the home of the Nords. It's like a human race of people who live near the coldest mountains that could possibly exist, because it's like long winters there. So you can kind of think of the climate of Game of Thrones, but in Skyrim. And it's kind of similar. There's just places where it's just like always snowing, and it's just like almost never ending. And then there's other places where it's nice and warm and it rains and all that sort of stuff. So it has diversity in climate and all that stuff, which is really cool. And there's a lot of different types of creatures and other types of like undead in this game too, that you have to like deal with in like catacombs and stuff like that. So this game can be filled with like some sort of levels of horror, but it doesn't feel like a horror movie, like, oh, like jump scares and stuff like that. Like, you never get that vibe. It's all pretty manageable, you know. Like you get used to this game more quickly than you think. But yeah, like some of the animations for the combat is really cool, so I think that's what's gonna like gravitate more people to it. But then there's other things that can be a little bit more tedious, like making your skills up to level 100 and doing that so you can meet the Ebony Warrior, which is like one of the strongest opponents you would fight in this game to have the most interesting fight experience that the game has to offer. And yeah, like that's gonna be very difficult. Like having a very high level character, it gets boring trying to farm from it. It gets boring trying to farm for experience at some level. Like if you really like the game that much and you do it, like good on you, but it's not for everybody. You know, I think um, for people who have played the game, like there's a point in time where you like know like, okay, like I kind of like get the gist or had enough. Um, don't really feel like my character has to be leveled up that high, because at a certain level too, it's like you kind of feel already way too powerful. Like you seriously, like it's really easy to exploit the experience system so you can level up fast and get all these perks to make your character powerful with weapons and magic, enchantments and blacksmithing, like all sorts of stuff. So it's really easy to like go down the rabbit hole and like have your time consumed by this game. So yeah, like it can be a very addictive game. So that's why it's like, for me, I'm kind of better off without it now until like I decide to want to play it again. But it's kind of hard to get into a game, especially if you know it's like a very long storyline and you have to like commit a bunch of like time to like be good at it. Like, you know, it's like playing a sport, you know, you don't just learn how to play it and get good in a week or in a few days. Like it really does take some time. And Skyrim is not that difficult, honestly. You can choose whatever difficulty you want. But if you start off on legendary difficulty because that's the kind of playstyle you enjoy, well, you can expect to take twice or three times as long playing this game, because every enemy is going to be way too difficult for your skill level as a character. Like you're going to be fighting level 30s and you're still level 1, and then it's going to be even higher the more you climb up. So it's going to be insane like that. But again, it's all relative to what you enjoy. And like if you play the game Dark Souls, for example, is what I always think of. You know, you might enjoy those high risk type of games where it's like you fight enemies that are extremely difficult, but defeating them is the most satisfying thing in the world. It's like a rush of dopamine. So that's kind of what it feels like, honestly. It can get very fun. You can find yourself spending a lot of time playing, and it's not for everybody for that reason too, because there's other games that aren't even role-playing games that feel addictive, you know, like especially like, you know, the old Call of Duty era, when like the first two Black Ops games, like those weren't role-playing games, but I sure found myself playing those games for quite some time, like, you know. So just some old stories of a gamer. But no, I mean, those were good times, especially with friends. But yeah, Fallout 4, that's another interesting game. But to end with Skyrim really quick, you're basically, again, this hero. You're not necessarily a Nord if you don't want to be. You can be, again, like orc. You can be an elf, a wood elf. You know, an Argonian that's pretty much like a lizard. And there's even a cat race known as Khajiit. So yeah, pretty interesting choice of, you know, the developers. But there's a lot into this game. You know, there's also factions. You can join a warriors guild. You can join a league of assassins or thieves. Like, there's all sorts of things you can do. So you can have a very interesting playthrough and run the game a bunch of different times as a different character, and like, have fun trying to be a different character. Honestly, like, there's a lot you can do with that. So there's a lot of fantasy element. You can be a werewolf, you can be a vampire, you can be a vampire hunter, you can just, I don't know, like, you can lead the companions, like that warriors guild I was talking about. You can be a leader of that group. Like, it can be almost anything you want it to be. So yeah, there are limits, but you can get past that with mods. Like I said, you can even become a king if you use mods. So, like, if that's what you really wanted to do, well, there's a mod for that. I'm not sure how things work now, because old Skyrim, like the first game, like they used to have all the best mods, like for all that kind of stuff and being a ruler. But who knows? I haven't touched a game in a while, so don't know how it is. But there's still a lot of fun things, I imagine. So yeah, it's that kind of vibe. So enough about that. Fallout 4. Where do we even begin? This is a very packed game as well. Like, it has a lot. There's so much to talk about. But I'm gonna just go through the broad strokes, because I don't want this to be an hour-long video. This game is a post-apocalyptic world type of game, and you're basically known as the lone wanderer, which already sounds kind of depressing, honestly, but it is a sad game. Like, I will say that. And between the violence in this game and Skyrim, I would say obviously Fallout 4 is a very violent video game. So if you're not a big fan of violence, these games really aren't for you. Like, this is only for a person who truly loves action games and that realm of fantasy. So if you're not really into that, it's not really for you, to be honest. But yeah, these are pretty much and for mature games. Like, this really only should be played by adults, because again, it's like gore, and that's pretty graphic. So yeah, like, it can be, I don't know, you can be definitely surprised by like the amount of details this game has, even with like damage that you can do to an enemy. So it's pretty crazy in that way. So besides that, this is a post-apocalyptic world. You could kind of think of a little bit of like Mad Max and stuff like that. I don't know why I like to draw connections with movies, but there are some elements that you can see connected to the games and films. And yeah, you can definitely see that with Fallout, and connecting a little bit with Mad Max. The only thing I could have wished that they really added to this game was like the ability to drive and pilot helicopters. Like, that would have been the coolest thing. It would have felt a little bit more like Grand Theft Auto, but it kind of already is like that, because there's a lot of things you can do in this game, and it's pretty much open to whatever you decide. Like, if you want to be a hero or a villain, it's all up to you. But much like Skyrim, this game really builds you up to be like a hero, because again, in Skyrim, you're supposed to save the world from a dragon that is gonna destroy the world and it's gonna consume it. And in this game, you're basically have two goals in mind. And this is a bit controversial with the second thing I'm gonna say, but the first one is to find your son. He's missing, he's been kidnapped. And then the other part is to destroy the Institute. And the reason why I say that's controversial is because some people think that that's that should be the correct ending to the game, to join the organization that is the most technologically advanced but also the most cruel, because in this game the Institute creates synths. And for anybody who's seen Blade Runner or any AI movie, basically it's like pretty much human androids, right? Like cyborgs, but you can't tell the difference between a human and the android because it has flesh on the outside but metallic parts on the inside. So, it's almost seamless. But the thing about that is like this institute, right? It's built underground. It's built under a university known as the Commonwealth Institute of Technology. And yeah, a bunch of maniacal scientists banded together and decided that AI is the best replacement for humans to be able to make a better future. In a sense, that's like, in a sense, you could argue as well that they want to create synths to help humans. That's what they also make it seem like. But how are you going to help humans if you're kidnapping them and killing them in the process to make synthetic humans? That's not very helpful if you ask me. Like if the human population was in decline, you have this institute making these synths, that are capable of combat. They don't need to sleep or eat or do anything like a human, or never gets tired for that matter. Can you imagine how advantageous a species, or not even like a species, but basically like a machine that is operating with like human biology, like how advantageous that would be in combat, and like how easy it would be for them to conquer. Like there's things like that I think about, but like it's not that I think like AI is just automatically evil. It's like there are things that can go wrong with it, of course, because it all depends on programming and a bunch of hypothetical stuff. Like, like anything could go wrong. I mean, things go wrong with humans too. Like, I'm not saying like, again, that AI is just bad. Like, there are bad humans, just like there can be bad AI robots, there can be bad humans. So, and then on that same token, there's also good robots and good AI and good humans. So it's a broad spectrum, but the problem is the way they make these androids, these synths, it's inhumane. So that's why it's really easy not to like this faction at all, because your son is the leader and he is pretty heartless, honestly. Like he's become very cold to the idea that he never knew his father, and it took him until he was 60 to finally release you from basically a freezer, because you are suspended in a cryopod. And what that basically is, it's like, if you ever seen I don't know, I'll just put an image of what that is, but basically he's in that. Your character, if you decide to play, either if you decide to play the mother or father, and play whichever role you want in the game, I have to like start this from like where the game begins. So this is just a little, a little backstory, just to kind of understand what I'm talking about was the sun and this post-apocalyptic world. When you start the game, you can decide to be the mother or father of a child whose name is Sean. And based on your choice, you're going to be tasked with having to take your family to a vault because there's a salesman, the nukes are about to fall in Boston, and it's also known as the Commonwealth. So, this map is based off of the the map in Skyrim. It was just created to be much different for this Fallout game, and it was like pretty much ingenuity at its finest, because it's just using what's already been used, but making an entirely different world, which is very interesting and really cool. But yeah, so you go to this vault, and they're obviously shady. Why are you going to why are you going inside a chamber where you're going to be frozen, and you don't know how you're going to sustain living there, because once they lock you in there, you stay there until someone lets you out. So that is super shady. Like, like not all vaults are like that, of course, but this one was. So, there's a lot to be said about the vaults in this game. They're just very shady, and it's like led by people who are probably not having anything to do with like government. Like, there's these wealthy folk probably that are running these inhumane experiments to profit off of people who are just trying to save their lives from these nukes that are about to fall. So yeah, also shout out to the Fallout TV show. I haven't seen it yet, but yeah, I think that's what's also like drawing my interest into playing this game more, because there's a lot more stuff that's coming out about like the game itself, and like Fallout 4. I haven't played any of the other Fallout games, by the way. Just a quick thing I want to say, like, I think a lot of people probably like Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3 more if they've already played Fallout 4. I've only played Fallout 4 for the longest. Like, it's hard to get into other games because there's a lot of games. I still haven't got to Elden Ring, so like I'm missing out too. So yeah, that's just life in a nutshell. But these games just take a lot of time, and sometimes it's better just to focus on the games that are not like breaking the bank these days. So it's just cool to revisit some every now and again. But this game is cool. You can do a lot of stuff in this game. You can be a part of this group like called the Minutemen. They're the most ethical organization in the game. They're the real heroes that are trying to rebuild Boston from the ground up, because everything's pretty much blown up at this point. So you might as well get that carpentry license and just build everything from scratch again, and also add defenses, because there's a bunch of raiders on the loose that are looting and killing everybody. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. So in that backstory I just mentioned to you, I was talking about the cryopods. So you go there with your wife and your only son, who's, yeah, like your only child essentially, and you're frozen there, and then someone like thaws the people, and this is like probably like 100 years after that, like nobody has come for you to like get you out so you can like eat something or whatever, like just spend time with your family in the vault, which is really weird. Like, again, why would you just voluntarily just go into a chamber to freeze yourself? Like, you don't even know if you're just giving your own life away, but hey, that's the chance that these people were willing to take. Crazy enough, right? You thaw out, you watch this mercenary named Kellogg just walk up to your wife's cryopod. If you're playing as Nate, the male character, that's who I tend to play as, so that's who I'm going to refer to throughout Fallout 4 for the most part. if you play as Nate, you watch your wife get shot, you watch your son get kidnapped, and your main objective in this game is to get your son back, whether you have to save him, whatever it takes to get him back, you know. And all you know is that you've seen him as an infant and he got kidnapped. So you don't know how he really looks like anymore, because by the time you wake up, you go back to where you live in Sanctuary Hills, and you meet was your robot butler, who you meet in the first part of the game too, by the way. I just didn't mention him. You meet Codsworth, and he tells you that 210 years have passed. So you have no idea if your son is still an infant or his true age, to be honest. And it's only until you find out that he's part of that institute that I mentioned that you're like, what? Like, why? Like, why would he ever want to lead people who are a part of an organization that kidnaps real people and replaces them as these human-like robots? Like, why? And again, it's eerie. It's like, it's kind of creepy, because it's like you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Like if you had a friend that's obviously a human, was the institute at any point can kidnap that person, use their body to create a synthetic version of themselves with metal parts so that they can live longer, and put them back into the area where, again, they were kidnapped, and you will never know if they were actually the same person, because again, they're not. Like, a synth is not the same as the real human being that was copied. So essentially, synths are copies of humans that aren't human. They just mimic humans. They're imitations of humans with metal parts inside, and they can live longer, and they're more like robots and machines, if anything, because they don't need to sleep, they don't need to eat, they don't get tired. So that is pretty scary if you're thinking about combat, because again, they have more an advantage if you think about going against a supercomputer that is in the shape of a human. It can be programmed to be a lot more faster and efficient, even smarter to a certain degree, depending on how much programming it has. So yeah, synths are pretty scary, but there's a few cool ones like Nick Valentine. You know, if you played the game, this is probably everyone's favorite synth, and it makes sense. He's a really chill guy. And there's 3 generations of synths. There's the first one that looks super creepy. Like, it looks like what humans would look like, just without skin, and you can see through their body and their organs, and like, just creepy. Like, then there's the Gen 2s that are less creepy, you know, but you can tell that they're still more robotic than human. They just, again, are more of like, I guess you could say a mannequin, except that it feels more lifelike. So it's not a mannequin, because mannequins are pretty creepy too, but there are some that look more like a mannequin than others. Nick doesn't look like a Nick doesn't look like a mannequin sort of synth robot. Like, he looks pretty normal. I mean, he looks damaged, of course, but he doesn't look like a creepy synth. Like, that's just my opinion. I think more synths should have been more like him, was that kind of character. He's a detective too, so he's a really cool guy. Like, he believes in justice, and he's the type of synth that I believe synths should be, you know, like detectives, medical specialists, like those kind of roles in Fallout. Like, that would have been amazing. You don't get a lot of synth characters like that, like Nick Valentine, unfortunately. The only the only the only other cool one is Paladin Dance from the Brotherhood of Steel, and this is basically like the most advanced military in this game, which is also really cool. But I really dislike the fact that they forced them to be an unlikable military because of how bigoted they are towards robots, super mutants, and basically anything else that isn't a normal human being. It's very limiting, and as I've heard in other videos, they are possibly the weakest military because they are so narrow-minded on who they allow to help them as a military that, you know, they make an enemy out of everybody. And, you know, that just puts a bigger target on you. If you're a military, you don't want to have enemies in every single direction, you know. And given the fact that their base is on a blimp, like, I'm not joking, like, it's on a blimp, yeah, that's not a very smart place to put a military base of operations. Like, it just isn't. But I don't know, it's a cool base. It's just, you know, like, they have foolish ideologies. Like, I think they should get over the fact that since have been made, there's no reason to kill all of them, because that's essentially almost like genocide in a way, but with robots. And some of them are actually really chill, so why kill them? Um, so yeah, they're problematic. Like, they have great technology, power armor is cool, the weapons are great, but their ideologies are misaligned, in my opinion. And then there's the railroad. They're an underwhelming faction. Okay, they're like trying to be like the CIA and spies and all that stuff. Very like esoteric, you know, very cryptic. The problem with them is that there's just a very small group and they never trust you. So it always feels weird working with them, because even though they give you these nice rewards for completing their whatever they need you to do, like, okay, so it's not whatever they need you to do. Like, they give you nice rewards for helping enslaved synths escape from the Institute, because, as I mentioned, synths are made from the Institute and they're treated as tools that can be used and discarded at any time. So there are a few that actually want to leave because they want to seek a life that isn't just doing stuff for an organization that disregards their importance as just a tool, you know. They're able to recall memories, they're able to feel emotions even though they're not humans and they don't have souls, but they can still feel pain in a way. So they could also sense fear. Like, if they're programmed to feel emotions, you know, you can only imagine that they're just unhappy and they want to leave. The only problem is that if you know how they're programmed, you can say a code name to basically deprogram them and turn them off completely. Like, if you were to turn off a vacuum, but you would have to say a certain phrase to turn it off, you know. So that's pretty insane, but that's what it is. So the railroad, all they do is just try to help them, but they're an odd bunch. That's all I'm saying. They just feel like misfits that banded together and try to make their own sort of CIA under a church, by the way, which, I don't know, like, I feel like they have the least thought out base besides the Brotherhood of Steel, because, yeah, who thinks someone's gonna live under an abandoned church to run a base of operations to save synthetic humans? Probably no one. But they have a freedom trail that leads them right to their base, which is nonsensical. Why would you have that besides helping you out? But anyone else can follow that trail. And it's funny because if you choose to destroy that faction, um, the game makes it seem like all you had to do was put a bomb just to open that door. And if you don't know how to open that door in that freedom trail thing, you're gonna spend quite a while trying to find, like, twisting and turning the knobs to put the letters of railroad together. It's that's an annoying thing, but I digress. There's a lot you can do in this game. As I said, it's a game filled with almost an endless amount of things to do, and you can make a very powerful character. You get these insane weapons. You can make them better. You can have perks to make you have more damage, more resistance to damage as well. So yeah, pretty much a tank. You can build yourself up to be a walking tank, and have fun doing all of that sort of stuff and trying to either save the world or make it a worse place than it already is. And here are my final thoughts on Fallout. I think this game is so tragic because, for one, it is tragic. If you had to define this game in a few words, you only really care most about finding your son. Like, you really only care about finding your son until you find out that your son never was able to be saved because he was too far gone already. Why was he far gone? Because he was part of an organization that doesn't have their best interests in human beings on the most basic level. His mother died, and he sees her as collateral damage for the Institute. And the person who killed her was being used by your own son. Again, mother shot and killed in cold blood, and he was still using that psychopath for his own gains for the Institute. And then he let him loose. And there's a conversation with that in the game, and he's like, oh, would you have preferred me let him loose? You did let him loose. That's why your character was able to find him. So it's just so hypocritical and absurd. Your son is just awful in this game. And it's so unfortunate because, yeah, it just feels like the reverse of Star Wars, where instead of finding out that your father is Darth Vader, it's actually your son. So that really sucks. And there's really nothing you can do about it. Like, the game doesn't give you a choice to, like, help your son see differently than what he already has known for so many years. And I think that's why there's been this trope of this, like, elderly archetype. There's been this archetype of this elderly person who is stuck to a certain way of living that they can't see beyond anything they've already known. And I think that just is something that gets so annoying and tiresome and, like, gaming and games and movies, because it's like that's one of the worst type of characters you can write. Like, that's just so lame, because your character, like, playing as Nate, you risk everything on the line to see your son, and your son at some point tells you that he let you out of that cryopod where you're frozen just to see if you would survive as an experiment. You know how defeating that is? Like, that just sucks. Like, that's just, like, and that, I mean, some people go as far as killing Sean in the game, which is, like, it's a weird thing to do, because honestly, like, he's gonna die anyways. In the game, like if you decide not to kill him, he's like he gets cancer, so he's gonna die, and it sucks. But you can honestly see how it's karma on him because of all the terrible things that he's been a part of. And I don't know, I mean, like, he's not the son you thought he'd be. You know, you as the father just want to reunite with him, to have a nice family bond, because that's the only family you really have left, and he's already too far gone. You know, like at that point, he's not really a true son because he saw his mom as collateral damage, and he was taking advantage of a serial killer that's also a mercenary as a person to still do dirty deeds where he doesn't need to get his hands dirty. You know, like he's using a hitman to do all of these dirty deeds, doesn't need to get his hands dirty, so might as well use the person who has already killed his mother. Like, it's just messed up. And yeah, then it's like the end of the game, and you can still help with the settlements, and you will definitely get it marked on your map by Preston. So yeah, hilarious meme, of course. There's just so much in this game. Like I said, like you can help with a bunch of settlements, you can find a lot of interesting characters, and I think for me, like the dialogue and the characters are so well written in this game. Like they're just so well written, and to me, that's what makes this game more interesting than the characters in Skyrim, for example, because the characters in Skyrim just feel kind of boring. It just feels like they're reading a script the entire time. And these characters in Fallout 4, they feel more real. They feel like their personality is so true to even what they wear, like even how they talk and everything. Like everything matches in a way. So I would say that Fallout 4 is easily a 9 without mods. You can mod it, and I don't think that it would necessarily make the game that much better. But if you enjoy cheating the system, then yeah, like for someone else, this could be a 10 or a 9.5. But for me, this game really doesn't need mods, you know, and um, I don't know. I mean, that's just the way I prefer playing it. I haven't even installed a mod since the game came out, and I've been happy playing it that way ever since, because again, I'm not in it just to like have this OP character that's way too hard to kill and all that sort of stuff. Like that gets boring over a certain amount of time. I have more fun with like interacting with different characters, hearing their different opinions on different things you do in the game, and then just calling it quits, you know? Just, I don't know. Like it's a very simple gaming session for me. It's just trying different things out, using different weapons and builds. So yeah, that's all I can really say for Fallout 4. Solid 9. I think it's obviously a sad game, but I hope that if there's another game, you know, it's not as tragic. That's the only thing I would hope. If there's like a fifth Fallout or something like that, like just if there's anything involving family, I feel like it should be the story like Billy the Kid in Fallout 4, like reuniting with his family even though they're ghouls. Like that was one of the more heartwarming stories that I wish, you know, your character Nate as like the main character would have had with his family. Like it just upsets me that you know, like your son can't change his mind about all the things he's done. Like he's so convinced that everything he's been doing has been for like the betterment for humanity. So it's a weird thing to think about, because if you decide to join as the Institute, you're not even going to spend a lot of time there. You're going to be a leader of this cult of scientists, and then you're gonna be spending most of your time in the outside world that they don't even respect. Like, they just say like it's a horrible place to live, and preferably it's better to live inside the institute, which doesn't make sense because, again, your character is going to spend more time outside than in the institute. So that's my opinion. Of course, people are going to disagree with that, and that's okay. But I just felt like I really had to say that because I don't really like the institute. So it's been also confirmed by the Fallout TV show that the Brotherhood of Steel is more of like an official ending to destroying the institute. I only could have wished that the Brotherhood wasn't as bigoted as they are in the game. Like, I get that they think a lot of these species and creatures are lethal, but it doesn't mean that they're all gonna be bad and want to kill. So that's my problem with them. Like, instead of making more friends, they make more enemies. So that's not good. So I think the Minutemen are probably the best to help take down the Institute and have fun with like the rest of the side quests, because there's a lot of side quests too. Like, this game and Skyrim, just tons of side quests. But I like the side quest in Fallout 4 also more than Skyrim. I don't know why, but I just think that just the fact also that your character can speak in the game is very forward. Like, it's very forward thinking with gaming, because like it's more progressive in gaming, because I think it's so boring that in Skyrim your character has lines to say to other characters, but your character never actually has a voice or speaks. Like, he's basically muted, and somehow the other character understands what you're saying even though your character never speaks. I appreciate that there's voice actors, like Red Dead Redemption 2, like the Red Dead Redemption games, or even Grand Theft Auto games. Like, the characters speak, there's dialogue between the main character and the other characters. That's how a video game should be. Like, that's the biggest problem I had with Skyrim also. Like, your character should be able to speak and say the lines that he is saying or she is saying to other characters. So I think that's a point off of Skyrim there. So it'll be an 8.5, I guess. But yeah, I mean, that feels like a pretty big deal to me. If you have a video game where characters are supposed to talk and they're not speaking, and it's just like a subtitle that they're saying, like, they're not really saying anything. To me, that's just a silent film. And it's not even a silent film, because there's another character talking to you, and you're just basically saying a script without moving your mouth, like absolutely silent, and then the other character is somehow understanding you. Like, it's nonsensical. So yeah, definitely gonna have to edit out a lot of stuff in this, but that's okay. I think this video was a lot more worthwhile in my opinion. I definitely had a lot of fun making this video. I know it's not my usual film and TV content, but I'm kind of running dry on content too, so I like to talk about gaming. So, I think I'm gonna add that a little bit more into my reviews. So I appreciate you hearing me talk about games past a decade old. Uh, I appreciate you hearing me talk about decade old games. They still hold up in 2025 for sure. It takes a while to make games as large scaled as these, and it's definitely not easy for Bethesda to keep coming up with these type of these huge budget games. It's not easy for Bethesda to keep coming out with them. If we did have like 76, but You know, that game was very buggy. I hear it's a lot better now, but I haven't even played it because I don't want to play a game that I'm not sure if I'm gonna really enjoy just from all of the no just from all the notoriety around like the glitching and the bugs. And yeah, I mean, it might be better now, but I feel like the hype has gone down a little bit too low. So uh, we'll see with time. But again, I appreciate you sticking by watching this video. If you enjoyed this content, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.